Hi, I'm Carl Segno, and welcome to the Open Source News. This is part 2 of our segment on finding information on the internet. Maybe it's been happening a little too much lately, but I have a confession to make. I've been using other people's ideas. Of course, like I said, I'm trained as a social scientist, and we cite people and use other people's theories all the time. Now the time has come for me to tell you where the stuff in my videos came from. In terms of philosophy, I owe a lot to a Cambridge professor called Alan Macfarlane. 2 years ago, almost to the day, Alan Macfarlane gave a lecture at the National University of Ireland at Galway. It's about 20 minutes long, and it synthesizes the work of a couple key social scientists like Ernest Gellner and F.W. Maitland. In my opinion, what Macfarlane's put up is a state-of-the-art sociology and anthropology perspective on the conditions of liberty in democratic societies. In other words, you want to talk about a society having freedom or liberty in real terms, not in rhetorical terms. This video gives a pretty coherent exploration of what a society needs, and what the implications of events like 9/11 are for liberty in the future of democratic societies. The idea of an open society comes from a philosopher named Karl Popper, who wrote a book called The Open Society. And this idea that healthy democracy, healthy society depends on association, on those levels in between the individual and the government, comes as much from this video with Alan Macfarlane as it does from philosophers like Karl Popper. Here's the link. That's not all Macfarlane was up to, though. On his website, www.alanmacfarlane.com, he's collected together about 140 interviews. Not like the interviews I've been collecting together on the site. We're talking 2-hour, in-depth, including life history, talks with a good chunk of England's intellectual elite and a fair number of people from the continent, from India, from America. At first he was just interviewing social scientists, but he started getting other people. Now he's got physicists, biologists, demographers. Here's the link. Also on YouTube, Macfarlane has put a series of videos relating to his field work overseas and other short snippets and vignettes. Here's the link. For most people, these videos, especially the interviews, might be a bit too detailed or a little flat. For other people, it's very exciting. And more importantly, what it represents, I think, is an opening up of the elite levels of English academia. By looking into what you do with online technology, Macfarlane has taken a field that was the privilege of the few for its entire history, the social sciences, taken the intellectual capital from that field, and made it available to anybody who feels like looking at it. We can't forget that open societies don't just depend on government institutions becoming malleable to the will of the people and transparent and accountable. We also need the experts that we trust to do the same. That's what makes Macfarlane's site so interesting to me. Here's the link. For those of you that don't want to watch a 2-hour interview but would still like to have your mind stimulated, there's a fantastic series of interviews. If you like to think outside the box, this site is kind of like candy. What I'm talking about is the TED conferences. TED stands for Technology, Education, and Development. The TED Foundation was started by Richard Saul Wurman and Harry Marks, and its mandate was to come up with ideas that would change the world. One interview in particular with Clay Shirky was part of the reason I got so interested in the power of internet and politics. Clay Shirky is an American who wrote a book recently called Here Comes Everyone, about the power of collaboration and the value of a collaborative approach versus the traditional institutional approach, in terms of social organization, public interaction, that sort of thing. Shirky argues that the problem with institutions is that they're too restricted. They can only hire people that make good employees, that can come up with a fair bit of output. which means the institution model has to give up all of those people who would love to contribute just once. One photo in a photo archive, one edit to a piece of software, one cover of one song. The institution model can only employ a certain number of people, whereas the collaborative model, facilitated by tools like the internet, lets anyone who wants to contribute to something apply this philosophy to government, and suddenly you don't need necessarily to employ politicians. Apply the same philosophy to government, and suddenly anybody can be a politician. You don't have to put out quality output of always being in your constituency office and going back and forth from Parliament. You can just post your opinion in a blog, or contribute to an open source policy editing program. Here's the link. The final online source of information I'd like to talk to you about is ZeFrank.com. ZeFrank made his name on the internet, like many people, by releasing a goofy video of himself dancing. Then, in the darkest years of the Bush administration, he became a political commentator. In true blog format, just about anything could show up on the site. But there's something more. He founded an internet community. Slowly, through the show and through other projects on his blog, he got people to contribute their own content. Anything from music videos to cartoon sketches, comedy. I think there's probably two key points at the base of ZeFrank's philosophy. One is that over the last 50 or 60 years, the price of technologies of authorship, like printers, video cameras, such as the one I'm on now, sound recording software, photo editing software, has all dropped exponentially. Which means that things like art and broadcasting, which were once the purview of elites, have now become just about anybody's game. ZeFrank's second important point is, if you have an idea, instead of letting it sit there and wishing you could express it somehow, in this new technological and social environment, the best thing to do is just to get it out there. ZeFrank's site provided a platform for all kinds of people's content collaboration ideas. It's also a benign example of an interesting marketing tool known as viral or contagious marketing. That's where instead of trying to reach as many people as possible, you focus on making a message valuable to enough people in a way that they'll spread the message onwards for you. You create an idea or an aesthetic that will replicate itself, that is interesting enough to make people want to become part of it. And then what you get is a lot of people working together under a common framework, which harnesses the potential for a very powerful kind of collaboration. So it comes down kind of like a teaching website on how to produce internet content and set up internet communities. In our campaign, Boris and I played around with the idea of viral marketing, not that it worked, but the whole shadow metaphor idea, as well as the little helicopters, I feel empowered, were kind of attempts at something like that. If you go to ZeFrank.com and watch the show, you'll also notice that he uses short, quick snippets, kind of like I've been doing. Because for one thing, it lets you edit a video like you'd edit an essay. And because it keeps things fast-paced and interesting. Here's the link. Because I've got lots and lots of links. In this postmodern environment where the medium is the message, what's great about ZeFrank's site is he informs his viewers of the medium. I'd like to do the same. Part of looking for information on the internet, because of the nature of the medium, the way the internet isn't just being talked to, but talking back, is also finding information about how to produce content, should you be so inclined. I hope this kinda helps. Thank you for joining us on the Open Source News. Stay tuned for more stories about everything.